The UES Harmony drifted slowly through the dark space between stars. Captain Lee Dong-ho stood on the bridge watching the endless black through the main window. His hands were steady on the rail, but his heart was beating fast. Today was the day humans would meet their first alien friends. "Captain, we are getting close to their space," said Navigator Kim Jae-sung from his seat. The young man had been excited for weeks about this trip. They all had been excited. Lee nodded and walked to his chair. "Send the message we practiced. Tell them we come in peace." The ship's computer sent out radio waves carrying humanity's first greeting to another thinking species. The message was simple and clear. Earth wanted to be friends. Earth wanted to trade. Earth wanted to share the stars in peace. Ambassador Park So-ra stood beside the captain's chair. She wore her best clothes and carried papers with Earth's peace offers. She had spent 2 years learning what little they knew about the Valthians. The aliens controlled 17 star systems. They had big ships and strong weapons. But they also had art and music and stories, just like humans. "I hope they like us," Park said quietly. "They will," Lee answered. "How could they not?" 3 hours passed before the aliens answered. A voice came through the ship's speakers. It sounded cold and strange, but the translation computer made the words clear. "Human ship. Follow our escort. Do not change course. Do not use weapons. Any wrong move will result in your destruction." Lee frowned. This was not the warm welcome they had hoped for. But first meetings were always difficult. Maybe the aliens were just careful about strangers. 2 huge alien ships appeared on their screens. Each ship was 5 times bigger than the Harmony. Their dark metal surfaces were covered with weapon ports and strange blue lights. The alien ships moved around the human vessel like wolves around a deer. "Stay calm, everyone," Lee said to his crew. "Remember, we are here to make friends." The alien ships guided them to a space station that looked like a massive black flower made of metal. As they got closer, Kim whistled softly at his controls. "Captain, that station is bigger than our biggest city back home." Lee nodded. The Vielthians were clearly much more advanced than humans. But that was okay. Earth had things to offer too. Humans were good at art, music, and solving problems. They could learn from each other. The Harmony docked with the station. Lee, Park, and 4 other crew members put on their dress uniforms and walked through the airlock. The alien station felt cold and empty. The walls were smooth black metal, and blue lights ran along the ceiling like glowing rivers. They followed a group of alien guards down long hallways. The Vielthians were tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. They wore dark robes that covered most of their bodies. None of them spoke to the humans. Finally, they reached a great hall with a high ceiling. At the far end sat a creature that was clearly important. It was bigger than the others, with gold decorations on its robes. Its black eyes stared at the humans without any warmth. "I am High Executor Thexvan," the creature said. Its voice was deep and harsh. "You are the humans from the small blue planet." Park stepped forward and bowed politely. "I am Ambassador Park So-ra. We bring greetings from all the people of Earth. We hope to build friendship between our species." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was not a happy sound. "Friendship?" Thexvan said. "You mistake our relationship, little creatures. We do not make friends with insects." Park's face went red, but she kept her voice calm. "We are not insects. We are thinking beings just like you. We have culture, science, and art. We can offer trade and knowledge. You can offer service," Thexvan said sharply. "Your species will submit to the Velthian Empire. You will give us 40% of your population to work in our mines and factories. You will destroy all your military ships. You will send us 40% of everything your planet makes each year." The hall went quiet. Lee felt his blood turn cold. Park stood very still for a long moment. "I'm sorry," Park said carefully, "but we cannot accept those terms. Earth is a free world. Our people choose their own lives." Thexvan's eyes grew darker. "Then you choose death." The alien pressed something on his chair. A large screen appeared in the air above them. It showed a human mining station called New Hope. Lee recognized it immediately. 50,000 humans lived there, including many families with children. "Watch closely, little insects," Thexvan said. On the screen, a Velthian warship appeared near the mining station. The human station sent out calls for help, asking what was wrong. The warship did not answer. Instead, it fired a single beam of light. The mining station simply disappeared. One moment it was there, full of life and light. The next moment there was only empty space and floating pieces of metal. Park made a small sound like she had been hit. Lee's hands closed into fists. Kim started to say something, but his voice broke. 50,000 of your kind just died, Thexvon said calmly. Their deaths are your responsibility. You could have prevented this with simple obedience. You murdered them, Lee said. His voice was quiet but full of anger. I gave a demonstration, Thexvon replied. Your species has 1 Earth year to accept our terms. Submit, or we will visit every human world and station. We will burn your cities. We will take your children. We will turn your blue planet into a dead rock floating in space. The alien stood up from his chair. He was even taller than Lee had thought. Do not mistake our mercy for weakness, Thexvon continued. We allow you to live because we find you occasionally useful, but we can erase your entire species as easily as we erased that station. Remember this when you return to your leaders. Park opened her mouth to speak, but Thexvon raised his hand. There will be no negotiation, no discussion, no bargaining. You have 1 year to submit completely or face total extinction. These are the only choices your species will ever have. The alien guards moved closer to the humans. It was clear the meeting was over. Take them back to their ship, Thexvon ordered. Send them home with our message. Let them tell their kind what happens to those who refuse the Valthian Empire. As the guards led them away, Lee looked back at the High Executor. The alien was already talking to his assistants, as if the humans were completely forgotten. Victor, walk back to their ship felt like a bad dream. None of the humans spoke. They were all thinking about the mining station, and the 50,000 people who had died for no reason at all. Back on the Harmony, Lee ordered an immediate departure. As their ship pulled away from the alien station, the crew gathered on the bridge. What do we do now? Kim asked. His young face looked scared and confused. We go home, Lee said. We tell Earth what happened here. We tell them what these aliens really are. Park was staring out at the stars with tears in her eyes. 50,000 people, she whispered. They killed 50,000 innocent people just to make a point. Lee put his hand on her shoulder. They made their choice, he said. Now humanity will make ours. As the Harmony jumped into faster-than-light travel, racing toward Earth with the worst news in human history. None of them knew they had just witnessed something important. They had seen the moment when humanity's innocence died. The Valthians thought they had frightened a weak species into submission. They thought humans were just another primitive race that would bow down to superior force. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The journey home would take 3 weeks. 3 weeks for the news to spread across Earth. 3 weeks for humanity to decide what kind of species they really wanted to be. The aliens had given them a choice: submit or die. But there was a third option the Valthians had not considered. An option that would soon make them regret they had ever heard of a small blue planet called Earth. The news hit Earth like a giant rock falling from space. President Choi Min-ho stood in the emergency meeting room, watching the video from New Hope Station play again on the big screen. 50,000 people, gone in a flash of light. His hands shook as he turned off the display. How long do we have? Asked General Ko Seung-ho. 11 months and 2 weeks, replied Ambassador Park So-ra. She had not slept since returning from the alien meeting. Dark circles ringed her eyes. They want 40% of our people as slaves. They want us to destroy our military. They want almost half of everything we make. And if we refuse? Asked Admiral Ryu Tae-jin. They kill everyone on Earth. The room went quiet. 20 of Earth's most important leaders sat around the table. Each one was thinking the same thing. How do you fight enemies who can destroy a whole space station with one shot? President Choi walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Millions of people were going about their normal lives. They did not know yet that their world was about to change forever. What are our military options? Choi asked. Admiral Ryu opened a folder. Honestly, sir, not good. We have 300 ships in the Earth Defense Fleet. Our biggest weapons are fusion bombs. Based on what Captain Lee saw, their single warship could probably destroy our entire fleet. Then we surrender? Asked someone. No. The voice was quiet but firm. Everyone turned to look at Dr. Nam Soo-jin. She was a small woman who usually worked on military strategy. We don't surrender, we adapt. General Ko laughed bitterly. Adapt? Did you see what they did to New Hope? They have weapons we can't even understand. That's exactly why we can win, Nam said. She stood up and walked to the front of the room. They think we're weak because our technology is simple. They think we'll fight like them, ship against ship in open space. But we're not them. We're humans. What are you suggesting? President Choi asked. Nam smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator. I'm suggesting we show them what apex predators from a death world can really do when their survival is threatened. Over the next week, Nam's plans spread through Earth's governments like wildfire. It was not a plan for surrender. It was not a plan for traditional warfare. It was a plan for something much darker and more terrible. Dr. Yoon Hai-won led the science team studying the wreckage from New Hope Station. Every piece of alien metal was examined. Every energy reading was analyzed. Slowly, they began to understand how Valthian technology worked. Their weapons are incredibly powerful, Yoon reported to the president, but they're designed for fighting in open space between large ships. They're not good for close combat or fighting in complex environments. Meanwhile, every military base on Earth became a center of frantic activity. Admiral Ryu oversaw the biggest military buildup in human history. But they were not building the big ships that other spacefaring races used. Instead, humans built thousands of small, fast attack craft. They built mines that could hide in asteroid fields. They built weapons that could turn space rocks into guided missiles. Most importantly, they built ships designed for one purpose: getting human soldiers close enough to alien ships to board them. The industrial power of Earth turned toward war. Every factory that made cars started making weapons. Every company that built computers started making military systems. Every person who knew how to fight was recruited into the growing human war machine. Captain Oh Min Seo stood in a training facility watching her new soldiers practice. These were not the peace-loving explorers who had first reached for the stars. These were humans being trained to fight and kill in the vacuum of space. Remember, she told them, they're bigger than us. They're stronger than us. Their technology is better than ours, but we have something they don't have. We know how to survive in places that want to kill us. We know how to fight dirty when we have to, and we know how to never ever give up. The soldiers nodded. Many of them had lost friends or family on New Hope Station. They were not fighting for glory or conquest. They were fighting to prevent the extinction of their species. In secret facilities around the world, humans worked on projects that would have horrified their ancestors. Dr. Lee, Yansu led teams developing biological weapons designed specifically to kill Valthians. The aliens' advanced medicine would be useless against diseases that had evolved on Earth's hostile biosphere. It's terrible work, Lee told her assistant one night, but they chose to make this a war of extinction. We're just making sure we're not the ones who go extinct. Other teams worked on psychological warfare. Humans had spent thousands of years learning how to break their enemy's will to fight. They studied every piece of information about Valthian culture, looking for weaknesses. Captain Park Dong-wook commanded the new stealth fleet. His ships were painted black and designed to be nearly invisible. They carried no heavy weapons, but they were loaded with boarding pods and infiltration equipment. We're not going to fight them like gentlemen, Park told his crews. We're going to fight them like the predators we really are. We'll attack their supply ships. We'll sabotage their bases. We'll make them afraid to sleep at night. As months passed, Earth changed. The gentle blue planet became a fortress world bristling with weapons. Space elevators carried military supplies into orbit 24 hours a day. The moon became a giant military base. Mars was turned into a weapons factory. But the most important change was in the people themselves. Humans who had dreamed of peaceful exploration among the stars now dreamed of alien ships burning in space. Children practiced hiding in bomb shelters. Everyone learned basic combat skills. Lieutenant Seo Ji-won represented the new generation of human soldiers. She was 19 years old and had been training for war since the day the aliens made their threat. She could fight hand-to-hand in zero gravity. She could pilot any human spacecraft. Most importantly, she felt no mercy for enemies who threatened human extinction. They call us insects, Seo said to her squad during training. They think we're weak because we build small ships and simple weapons. They're going to learn that insects can kill much bigger creatures when they work together. President Choi visited military bases and weapons factories across Earth. Everywhere he went, he saw the same thing. Humans preparing for total war with cold, determined efficiency. The species that had reached for the stars in peace was revealing its true nature. Are we sure this is the right path? Choi asked Dr. Nam during one of their late-night planning sessions. They didn't give us any other choice, Nam replied. They could have chosen trade, they could have chosen friendship. Instead, they chose to threaten our children and demand our submission. Now they'll learn what happens when you threaten a species that evolved from apex predators. As Earth's preparation continued, human intelligence teams worked to learn everything they could about Valthian space. Every alien trade route was mapped. Every military base was located. Every weakness in their empire was identified and catalogued. The aliens thought they were giving humans a year to surrender. Instead, they had given humanity a year to prepare for their complete destruction. 2 months before the deadline, Fleet Admiral Lim Ju-young called together all of Earth's military commanders. The meeting was held in a bunker deep under the Pacific Ocean. The enemy expects us to either surrender or meet them in traditional space battles, Lim said. They're prepared for both options. What they're not prepared for is humans fighting like humans. She activated a holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Red dots marked Valthian military targets. Blue lines showed human attack routes. We're not going to defend Earth and hope for the best, Lim continued. We're going to attack them everywhere at once. We're going to destroy their ability to make war. And we're going to do it so completely that no other alien species will ever threaten humanity again. The commanders around the table nodded. They had spent a year preparing for this moment. Human fleets were hidden throughout Valthian space. Human agents had infiltrated alien bases. Human weapons were positioned to strike at the heart of enemy territory. What about their superior technology? Asked one commander. Technology is just tools, replied General Ko. What matters is the mind using those tools. And human minds have been perfecting the art of warfare for 50,000 years. These aliens are about to get an education they'll never forget. As the final deadline approached, Earth seemed strangely calm. The panic and fear of the first months had been replaced by cold determination. Humanity had made its choice. They would not surrender. They would not bow down. They would not allow their species to be enslaved. Instead, they would show the galaxy what happened when you threatened the survival of apex predators from a death world. The Valthians were expecting either submission or a desperate last stand. What they were going to get instead was something much worse. They were going to get humanity at war. The deadline came on a Tuesday. High Executor Thexavan stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Will. Through the great windows, he could see his fleet stretching out in all directions. 700 warships, the largest military force the Valthian Empire had ever assembled. Any word from the human insects? He asked his aide. No response to our final demand, High Executor. Their homeworld appears to be heavily defended, but our sensors show no major fleet movements. Thexavan made the sound that passed for alien laughter. Of course not. They know they cannot win. They are probably hiding in their caves hoping we will be merciful. Shall we begin the bombardment of their planet? Not yet. First, let them see our power. Destroy their outer colonies one by one. Let them watch their people die until they beg for mercy. The Valthian fleet spread out across human space like a dark plague. Their ships were massive and beautiful, with flowing lines and gleaming hulls. Each vessel was a masterpiece of alien engineering, carrying enough firepower to level a city. Admiral Song Ji-ho watched the enemy fleet from his hiding place inside the corona of Earth's sun. His ship, the Invisible Fury, was one of 50 vessels hidden in places the aliens would never look. The heat and radiation that would kill most species was just uncomfortable for humans in their specially designed ships. All ships, this is Admiral Song, he said into his communication device. The enemy has arrived exactly as we predicted. Phase 1 is now active. Remember, we get one chance at surprise, make it count. Across human space, the real war began. The first Valthian target was Europa Station, one of humanity's mining bases near Jupiter. As the alien warship approached, ready to demonstrate its power by destroying 50,000 more humans, something unexpected happened. The station was empty, not just evacuated, completely gone. Where a busy mining operation should have been, the aliens found only empty space and a few pieces of floating metal. Where did they go? Demanded the ship's commander. Before anyone could answer, the space around his ship erupted in explosions. Hundreds of small objects that had looked like space rocks suddenly revealed themselves as mines. The Valthian ship, designed to fight other large warships, had no defense against tiny explosives hidden in asteroid fields. Warning lights flashed across the alien bridge as the ship's hull cracked in dozens of places. The commander tried to call for help, but his communication systems were already damaged. Then the real attack began. Captain Ominseo led her boarding teams out of their hiding places. Dozens of small human ships, each carrying 50 soldiers, swarmed around the damaged, Velthian vessel like angry insects. They attached themselves to the alien hull and burned through with cutting tools. "Go, go, go!" Minseo shouted as her soldiers poured through the holes they had cut. The Velthians inside the ship were not prepared for close combat. Their weapons were designed for long-range space battles. In the narrow corridors of their own ship, they were almost helpless against humans carrying simple rifles and explosive charges. Minseo's soldiers moved through the alien ship like water flowing downhill. They had spent months learning the layout of Velthian vessels. They knew where the important systems were located. Most importantly, they knew that aliens who had never been in a real ground fight would panic when faced with trained human infantry. "Engine room secured," reported one team. "Bridge captured," called another. Within 2 hours, the entire Velthian warship belonged to humanity. The surviving aliens were locked in their own prison cells, while human engineers studied their technology. Similar scenes played out across 17 star systems. Velthian ships arrived expecting to find defenseless human colonies. Instead, they found traps, ambushes, and enemies who fought with a cold brutality that terrified them. Lieutenant Colonel Bei Hyun-woo commanded the assault on Kepler Station. His soldiers emerged from hiding places inside the station's asteroid field and overwhelmed the alien boarding parties that came to enslave the human workers. "These creatures don't know how to fight dirty," Bei told his men as they cleaned up the last resistance. "They think war is about honor and fair combat. We're going to teach them that survival is the only thing that matters." But the real shock came when the Velthian First Fleet tried to reach Earth itself. Admiral Song waited until the enemy ships were deep in the solar system before revealing his trap. Human vessels emerged from the sun's corona, from the asteroid belt, from behind Jupiter's moons, and from hiding places throughout the system. The aliens found themselves surrounded by enemies who fought unlike any species they had ever encountered. Human ships were small and fast, designed to get in close where alien weapons were less effective. They carried boarding pods, ramming spikes, and weapons that turned captured asteroids into guided missiles. "This is impossible!" shouted the commander of the Dominion's Will as human fighters swarmed around his ship. "How can insects fight like this?" He got his answer when Captain Park Dong-wook's stealth ship attached itself to the alien flagship's hull. Park's soldiers cut their way inside and began working their way toward the bridge. The Velthians discovered that humans were terrifyingly good at shipboard combat. Humans were smaller than aliens, which meant they could move faster through narrow corridors. Human weapons were simpler but more reliable in the chaos of close-quarters battle. Most importantly, humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years and knew every dirty trick in the book. Park himself led the final assault on the bridge. When the doors exploded inward and human soldiers poured through the smoke, High Executor Thexvan finally understood his mistake. "You're not insects at all," he whispered as Park's soldiers surrounded him. "No," Park replied, pointing his weapon at the alien leader. "We're apex predators from a deathworld, and you just declared war on us." The battle for Earth's system lasted 3 days. When it was over, the Velthian First Fleet no longer existed. Some ships had been captured, others had been destroyed. A few had escaped to bring news of the disaster back to alien space. But the real horror for the Velthians was still to come. As their surviving ships limped home, they discovered that the war was not limited to human space. Human attack fleets had been hiding throughout Velthian territory, waiting for the signal to begin their own assaults. Dr. Lee Yan-su's biological weapons were already spreading through alien colonies. Diseases that were harmless to humans but deadly to Velthians began appearing on worlds that had never seen a human ship. The aliens' advanced medical technology proved useless against pathogens that had evolved in Earth's hostile environment. "It's like fighting a nightmare," one surviving Velthian officer reported to his commanders. "They attack from everywhere at once. They don't follow the rules of civilized warfare. They seem to appear out of nothing, destroy everything they can reach, and then vanish before we can respond." Commander Lim Ju-young smiled as she read the intercepted alien communications. Her stealth fleets were doing exactly what they had been designed to do. They attacked supply convoys. They destroyed mining operations. They captured or destroyed any alien vessel that traveled alone. "The enemy is learning that humans don't fight fair," she told her staff. "We fight to win." The psychological impact on Velthian forces was devastating. Soldiers who had conquered dozens of alien races found themselves afraid to leave their bases. Ships that had once traveled alone now moved only in heavily defended convoys. The entire alien empire began to contract as its military forces pulled back to defend the most important worlds. But even that was not enough to stop humanity's assault. Engineer Kim Jae-sung, now a colonel in the Human Intelligence Service, led teams that infiltrated alien installations. Using captured Velthian technology, human agents moved through enemy space almost undetected. Their security is designed to keep out other aliens, Kim explained to his superiors. They never considered that enemies might think like humans. We find weaknesses they don't even know exist. The aliens began calling humans the Death Wind, because they seemed to strike from nowhere and leave only destruction behind. Velthian news broadcasts spoke of entire fleets vanishing without a trace. Colony worlds went silent overnight. The empire that had seemed invincible just months before was falling apart. High Executor Thexvan, now a prisoner aboard a human ship, was forced to watch as his empire crumbled. The beings he had dismissed as insects were systematically dismantling everything his people had built over thousands of years. How? He asked Captain Park during one of their conversations. How can a primitive species fight like this? Park looked at the alien with eyes that held no warmth. You made a mistake, he said. You thought we were weak because we wanted peace. You thought we were helpless because our technology was simpler than yours. But you never asked the right question. What question? You never asked what kind of world could produce a species that builds spaceships but still carries kinetic weapons. You never wondered why we have fusion power but still know how to fight with knives and explosives. You never considered that maybe we wanted peace because we knew exactly how terrible we could be at war. Thexvan's large black eyes grew even darker as understanding dawned. Earth is not a gentle world, Park continued. It's a planet that has been trying to kill everything on it for billions of years. The species that survive there don't serve. 6 months after the destruction of the Velthian First Fleet, the war had spread across half the galaxy. What the aliens had thought would be a simple demonstration of power had become their worst nightmare. Humanity was not defending, they were hunting. Colonel Bae Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the transport ship Earth's Vengeance as it approached the Velthian colony world of Thexmari. Through the windows he could see a planet covered in gleaming cities and green forests. 2 billion aliens lived down there, most of them civilians who had never heard of Earth until the war began. Colonel, said his aide, Lieutenant Seo Ji-won, the planet's defense fleet is requesting communication. Tell them we'll accept their surrender, Bae replied without looking away from the planet. They have 10 minutes to power down all weapons and prepare for occupation. The response came quickly. The alien commander's voice was shaking with fear and anger. We will not surrender to insects. Thexmari has stood for 10,000 years. We will fight to the last defender. Bae closed his eyes for a moment. 6 months ago he might have felt sorry for them. 6 months ago he might have tried to find a peaceful solution. But 6 months ago, the aliens had not murdered 50,000 innocent humans just to make a point. Then you've made your choice, he said. SEO, signal the fleet. Begin the cleansing. The human fleet had learned much from captured Velthian technology. Their new ships were still smaller than alien vessels, but they were faster and more deadly than anything the galaxy had seen before. As the human attack began, the aliens discovered that their enemies had evolved far beyond the primitive species they had first encountered. Captain Park Dong-wook's stealth ships struck first. They had been hiding in the planet's outer system for weeks, studying the alien defenses and preparing for this moment. Their first target was the orbital defense platforms that protected the planet. Ghost Squadron, this is Wolf Leader, Park said into his communicator. The hunt begins now. His ships moved like shadows between the alien platforms. They used captured Velthian cloaking technology combined with human tactics that no alien mind could predict. One by one, the defense stations simply stopped working, as human boarding teams took control of their systems. The planet's defense fleet tried to respond, but they were fighting an enemy that no longer followed the rules of civilized warfare. Human ships emerged from behind moons, from asteroid fields, and from the planet's own shadow. They attacked in coordinated swarms that overwhelmed individual alien vessels. Dr. Lee Yan-soo watched the battle from the command ship, Darwin's Wrath. Her biological weapons had already been deployed across 17 Velthian worlds. The aliens were calling it the Red Death, a disease that killed Velthians quickly, but left their cities and technology intact for human use. How many more planets are on our target list? She asked her assistant. 47 primary worlds, over 300 colonies and mining stations, came the reply. The Strategic Command wants them all neutralized within the next year. Lee nodded. She had stopped feeling guilty about her work months ago. The aliens had chosen to make this a war of extinction. If one species had to die completely, it would not be humanity. On the planet's surface, Velthian civilians watched their cities burn as human dropships landed. But these were not the random attacks of desperate refugees. This was systematic conquest by a species that had perfected warfare over thousands of years. General Ko Sung-ho led the ground assault personally. His soldiers moved through alien cities like a deadly tide, capturing key locations and eliminating resistance with cold efficiency. The aliens had superior individual technology, but they had never faced an enemy that combined human tactical thinking with stolen alien equipment. Remember the objective, Ko told his commanders over the radio. We need the factories and research centers intact. Everything else can be destroyed if necessary. The Velthians tried to mount a defense, but they were fighting creatures from a death world. Human soldiers could survive in environments that would kill most aliens. They could fight for days without rest. Most importantly, they showed no mercy to enemies who threatened their species' survival. Lieutenant Colonel Kim Jae-sung had become humanity's leading expert on Velthian psychology. His teams used captured alien communication systems to spread terror throughout enemy territory. The psychological warfare was devastatingly effective. We're not just winning battles, Kim reported to Earth Command. We're breaking their will to fight. Half the alien fleet crews are requesting transfers away from human combat zones. Their civilian populations are demanding their governments negotiate for peace. But humanity was no longer interested in peace. They had tried peace once, and the aliens had responded with threats of slavery and genocide. Now Earth's leaders had decided that the only way to ensure human survival was to eliminate the Velthian Empire completely. Admiral Song Ji-ho commanded the assault on the Velthian military headquarters world of Kexathara. His fleet included captured alien vessels crewed by humans who had learned to use enemy technology better than its creators. The irony is beautiful, Song told his staff as they watched Velthian ships fleeing from their own captured vessels. They gave us a year to prepare. They thought they were being generous. Instead, they gave us time to become more dangerous than they ever imagined. The battle for Kexathara lasted 6 days. When it was over, the center of Velthian military power was a burning ruin. Thousands of alien officers were dead or captured. Their strategic databases had been downloaded by human intelligence teams. Captain Oh Min-seo stood in the ruins of the alien command center, reading through classified enemy documents. What she found made her laugh, not with humor, but with bitter irony. Listen to this, she said to her soldiers. Before they attacked us, the Velthians had files on 17 different species they had conquered. Every single one of them surrendered after the first demonstration of superior force. They actually wrote in their tactical manuals that primitive species always submit when faced with technological superiority. One of her sergeants spat on the ground. Guess they never met humans before. The war crimes began to mount on both sides, but it was the humans who embraced them most completely. Fleet Admiral Lim Ju-young ordered the complete destruction of any Velthian world that resisted human occupation. Her ships turned populated planets into dead rocks floating in space. They wanted to show us the price of resistance, she told the Earth Defense Council during a secure communication. Now we're teaching them that the price of threatening humanity is extinction. The galaxy began to take notice of humanity's methodical destruction of the Velthian Empire. Other alien species watched in horror as worlds that had stood for thousands of years were reduced to radioactive wastelands. The humans were not just winning, they were erasing their enemies from existence. Ambassador Han Mi-kyung found herself receiving communications from dozens of alien governments. Species that had never contacted Earth before were suddenly very interested in establishing diplomatic relations. They're scared, she reported to President Choi. Every major power in the galaxy is watching us destroy the Velthians. They want to make sure we know they're not our enemies. Good, Choi replied. His voice had changed over the months of war. The gentle leader who had once hoped for peace among the stars was gone, replaced by someone harder and colder. Let them be scared. Fear is the only thing that keeps apex predators from having to prove they're apex predators. But the war was changing humanity as well. Lieutenant Seo Ji-won represented the new generation of human soldiers. She had never known peace with aliens. Her entire adult life had been spent learning to kill efficiently and without remorse. I don't hate them personally, she told a war correspondent. Hate is a waste of energy. I just know that they chose to threaten my species' survival, and that means they have to die. All of them. It's nothing personal. It's just evolution in action. The aliens began calling humans the Grey Death because their soldiers showed no emotion when killing. Human forces moved through Velthian territory like a plague, consuming everything in their path and leaving only empty worlds behind. Dr. Yoon Hai-wan, the scientist who had first studied Velthian technology, now led teams that systematically cataloged and preserved alien knowledge before destroying their civilizations. Humanity was learning everything the aliens knew while erasing them from existence. "We're not just winning a war," she told her research teams. "We're absorbing their entire culture and adding it to our own capabilities. When this is over, we'll be more advanced than they ever were." The Velthian government finally began sending desperate peace offers to Earth. High Executor Thexvan, still a prisoner, begged to be allowed to negotiate a treaty that would end the slaughter. "Please," he said to his human captors. "We made a mistake. We were wrong to threaten you. Surely some arrangement can be made. Both our species can survive if we just stop fighting." Captain Park looked at the alien leader with eyes that held no warmth or mercy. "You had your chance for coexistence. You chose war instead. Now you get to live with that choice for however much longer your species exists." The Velthian homeworld of Velth Prime had never been attacked in its 10,000-year history. The planet was beautiful beyond description, with crystal cities that reached toward the clouds and floating gardens that sparkled like jewels in the alien sun. 4 billion Velthians lived there, the heart and soul of their ancient empire. Now it was about to die. General Ko Seung-ho stood on the command deck of the human dreadnought Terra's Judgment, watching the enemy planet grow larger. On the main screen, around his flagship, the largest human fleet ever assembled, moved through space like a school of deadly fish. "All ships report ready, General," said his aide. "We have 1,000 vessels in attack position. The orbital defense platforms have been neutralized by our advanced teams." Ko nodded. The battle for Velth Prime would be the final act in humanity's war of extinction against the aliens. After 18 months of systematic destruction, only the homeworld remained. "Open a channel to the planet," Ko ordered. On the screen, the image of High Chancellor Vexathura appeared. She was the leader of what remained of the Velthian government, an old alien whose black eyes held nothing but despair. "Human General," she said, her voice shaking. "We know why you are here. We are prepared to discuss terms for our surrender." "There are no terms," Ko replied. His voice was cold and final. "You chose war when you murdered 50,000 innocent humans. You chose war when you demanded our enslavement. Now you face the consequences of those choices. But surely some mercy is possible," the alien leader pleaded. "We have children on this world, families, artists and scientists who never harmed anyone." Ko thought of Lieutenant Seo Ji-wan, who had grown up in a world at war because of alien threats. He thought of Dr. Lee Yan-soo, who had spent 2 years creating weapons to kill entire species. He thought of all the humans who had been forced to become killers to protect their race's survival. "Where was your mercy for our children?" Ko asked. "Where was your mercy for our families? You made this a war of extinction. We're simply ensuring that the right species survives." The communication ended. Ko turned to his weapons officer. "Begin orbital bombardment. Target their government centers first, then their military installations. Save the population centers for last. I want them to watch their civilization die before they join it." The human fleet opened fire with weapons that had been captured, improved, and perfected over months of constant warfare. Beams of energy that could crack continents lanced down from the sky, turning the beautiful crystal cities into molten glass. But the real horror began when Admiral Lim Ju-young's forces arrived in system. Her ships carried the ultimate expression of human military evolution, planet-killer weapons that could turn a world into a ball of fire. "I remember when we thought space exploration would bring us friends," she said to her staff as they prepared for the final assault. "Now we know better. The universe is full of predators. The only choice is whether to be the hunter or the prey." On the planet's surface, Velthian civilians ran through burning streets as human drop pods rained from the sky. The soldiers who emerged were no longer the peaceful explorers who had first reached for the stars. These were killers shaped by war, trained to show no mercy to enemies who threatened human survival. Colonel Bae Hyun-woo led his Marines through the ruins of the Velthian capital. His soldiers moved with deadly efficiency, clearing building after building of alien defenders. They had perfected urban warfare to an art form during the conquest of dozens of worlds. "Remember," he told his troops over the radio, "we're not here to occupy this world. We're here to end it. Leave nothing that could threaten humanity in the future." The aliens fought desperately in their final battle. They threw everything they had at the human invaders, police forces, civilian volunteers, even children armed with improvised weapons. But they were fighting creatures from a death world, soldiers who had been forged in the fires of total war. Captain Park Dong-wook commanded the assault on the Vaelthian High Council building. As his soldiers fought their way through the ancient halls of alien government, he reflected on how much humanity had changed. "We used to build libraries," he said to his sergeant as they stepped over alien bodies. "Now we burn civilizations. I wonder what our ancestors would think of what we've become." "They'd think we survived," the sergeant replied. "That's all that matters now." Dr. Lee Yon-soo watched from orbit as her biological weapons spread through the planet's atmosphere. The Red Death would ensure that any aliens who survived the bombardment would die slowly and painfully over the following weeks. "It's almost over," she told her research team. "After this, there won't be enough Vaelthians left to threaten a single human child." But as the battle raged, something unexpected happened. High Executor Thexvan, the alien leader who had started the war, was brought to the surface under heavy guard. General Ko wanted him to see the final destruction of his people. "Look at your homeworld," Ko told the captive alien as they stood on a hill overlooking the burning capital. "This is what happens when you threaten humanity's children." Thexvan watched his civilization die with large black eyes that seemed to hold all the sorrow in the universe. "We were wrong," he whispered. "We thought you were weak because you sought peace. We never understood that you were choosing to be peaceful." "Now you understand," Ko replied, "but understanding comes too late. Your species chose to be our enemies. Enemies don't get second chances." As night fell on Vaelth Prime, the human fleet prepared for the final act. Admiral Lim's planet-killer weapons were charged and ready. With one command, she could turn the entire world into a burning wasteland that would remain lifeless for 1,000 years. But before she could give that order, something happened that no one expected. Lieutenant Seo Ji-won, the young soldier who had grown up during the war, stood up in the briefing room where the final attack was being planned. "General," she said quietly, "I have a question." Ko looked at her with surprise. SEO had never questioned orders before. She was one of his most reliable officers, a perfect product of humanity's war machine. "What is it, Lieutenant?" "When this is over," Seo said, "what happens to us? What happens to humanity when there are no more enemies to fight?" The question hung in the air like smoke from burning cities. Ko realized that he had no answer. Humanity had spent 2 years becoming the most efficient killers in the galaxy. They had erased entire civilizations from existence. They had turned their peaceful blue planet into the center of a war machine that spanned the stars. "We survive," Ko said finally. "That's what we've always done." "But what kind of survival is this?" Seo asked. She gestured at the screens showing the dying planet below. "Look what we've become. Look what we've done. We set out to explore the stars and make friends. Now we burn worlds and kill species." Around the room, other officers began to shift uncomfortably. They were all thinking the same thing. The war had changed them in ways that could never be undone. The gentle humans who had reached for the stars in peace were gone forever. Dr. Yoon Hai-won, who had studied alien technology and culture, spoke up from her seat. "She's right. We've absorbed Vaelthian knowledge, but we've also absorbed their methods. We've become conquerors, destroyers. Is this really what we wanted to become?" Captain Park looked around the room at faces that had grown hard and cold during months of warfare. "It doesn't matter what we wanted to become. It only matters what we had to become to survive. The aliens made that choice for us when they threatened our extinction." The debate might have continued, but it was interrupted by an urgent communication. From the planet's surface, Captain Omin Seo's voice crackled through the speakers. "Command, this is Ground Team Alpha. We've secured the Vaelthian archives. You need to see this." On the main screen, images appeared from the captured alien databases. They showed records of dozens of species that the Vaelthians had conquered over thousands of years. Some had been enslaved. Others had been completely wiped out when they refused to submit. "Look at this entry," Min Seo's voice continued. "The Kethmoran species. Peaceful traders, similar to early humans. The Vaelthians demanded their submission. When they refused, every single Kethmoran was killed. Men, women, children, all of them. Not one survived." More records appeared. The Veltaki, wiped out for resisting Vaelthian rule. The Zephnorans, enslaved for 3,000 years until they went extinct from overwork and abuse. the Quinthara, whose entire homeworld was turned into a wasteland as an example to other species. 17 different intelligent species, Minseo reported, all of them destroyed or enslaved by the Veilthians. We're not the first people they've tried to genocide. We're just the first ones who fought back effectively. The room went silent as the implications sank in. Humanity was not just fighting for their own survival. They were avenging 17 other species who had been murdered by Velthian imperialism. General Ko looked around at his officers. The doubt that had been growing in some of their faces was replaced by cold determination. The question is answered, he said quietly. What happens to humanity when there are no more enemies to fight? We make sure there are no more species like the Valthians to threaten the innocent. He turned to Admiral Lim. Signal the fleet. Complete the mission. End this. The final bombardment of Velth Prime lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the beautiful Kiar 2 years after the last Velthian died on their burning homeworld, the galaxy had learned to fear the small blue planet at the edge of explored space. Ambassador Han Mi-kyung walked through the halls of the new Galactic Council building on the neutral world of Kepler Prime, feeling the weight of 1,000 alien eyes upon her. She was no longer the junior diplomat who had once hoped for peaceful trade agreements. Now she represented the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever known. Her simple human business suit carried more authority than the elaborate robes of alien emperors. Ambassador Han, said Chancellor Kexthul of the Mordanian Republic, one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. The insect-like alien's voice was carefully respectful. The Council is honored by your presence. Thank you, Chancellor. Han replied with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. I trust the new security measures we discussed are being implemented? Of course. All weapons have been banned from Council space. Military vessels are restricted to the outer system. And as you requested, no species may bring more than a single escort ship to diplomatic meetings. Han nodded. The rules had been her idea, suggested with the gentle politeness that characterized human diplomacy, and backed by the implicit threat of what happened to species that made humanity feel unsafe. As she entered the main council chamber, conversation stopped. Representatives from 47 different species turned to look at the human ambassador. Some showed fear. Others displayed curiosity. A few managed to hide their emotions entirely. But all of them remembered what had happened to the Veilthians. The council recognizes Ambassador Han Mi-kyung of the Terran Federation, announced the session moderator, trying to keep his voice steady. Han walked to the center of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the silence. Around her, aliens who controlled star-spanning empires waited to hear what humanity wanted from them today. Thank you, she began, her voice calm and professional. I come before you today with a simple message. The Terran Federation wishes to live in peace with all intelligent species. We hope for trade, cultural exchange, and mutual cooperation in exploring the galaxy's many wonders. Relieved murmurs rippled through the chamber. This sounded like the old humanity, the peaceful species that had first reached for the stars with open hands and hopeful hearts. However, Han continued, and the chamber fell silent again. The Terran Federation will not tolerate threats to human worlds or human citizens. Any species that attacks our people, demands our submission, or attempts to enslave our population will face the full military response of humanity. She paused, letting her words sink in. Every alien in the chamber understood the real message. Behave, and humans would be your friends. Threaten them and your civilization would join the Velthians in extinction. On Earth, President Choi Min-ho stood in his office looking out at the city of New Geneva. The world's capital had been rebuilt after the war, but everything looked different now. The buildings were taller and stronger. The people moved with purpose and confidence. Even the children played war games that would have horrified their grandparents. Sir, said his aide, General Ko Sung-ho, the monthly security briefing is ready. Choi turned from the window. Ko had become his closest advisor during the war, and the old soldier's presence was both reassuring and troubling. The gentle professor who had once led the peace movement was gone, replaced by someone harder and more pragmatic. What's the status of our fleet expansion? Choi asked. Ahead of schedule. We now have active fleets in 43 star systems. Construction facilities on 16 worlds are producing new vessels using improved Velthian technology. Within 5 years, we'll have the largest military force in galactic history. Choi nodded. The human war machine had not stopped with the Velthians' destruction. Instead, it had grown larger and more sophisticated. Earth's leaders had learned that in a hostile galaxy, Strength was the only guarantee of survival. Any new threats on the horizon? None directed at us, Ko replied. But the Zelthari Empire and the Crystalline Hegemony are involved in a border dispute that could escalate to full warfare. Both sides have requested human mediation. Mediation, Choi repeated with bitter irony. 2 years ago we were asking for friends. Now we're the galaxy's police force. It's better than being slaves or corpses, Ko said simply. Meanwhile, Dr. Shin Woo-jin worked in her laboratory on Luna Base, studying the psychological effects of the war on human society. Her research painted a disturbing picture of how completely the conflict had changed humanity. We're not the same species that built the first starships, she told her research team. The war didn't just change our technology or our military, it changed us at the genetic level of who we are as a people. Her studies showed that human children born after the Velthian threat displayed different behavioral patterns than previous generations. They were more aggressive, more suspicious of outsiders, and more willing to use violence to solve problems. The gentle curiosity that had driven humanity to the stars was being replaced by cold pragmatism. Is this evolution? Asked one of her assistants. Are we becoming a more warlike species? Perhaps, Shin replied. Or perhaps we're simply becoming what the galaxy requires us to be. The question is whether we can ever go back to what we were before. Fleet Admiral Kang Hyo-jin commanded humanity's new deep space fleet from the bridge of the Terra Invictus, the most powerful warship ever built. Her fleet patrolled the outer regions of human space, watching for threats that might emerge from unknown sectors of the galaxy. Admiral, reported her intelligence officer, Captain Park Dong-wook, we're receiving distress signals from the Thraxian system. An unknown species is attacking their colonies. Kang studied the tactical display. The Thraxians were a peaceful trading species that had always maintained good relations with humanity. They had never threatened Earth or human interests. How many ships do the attackers have? She asked. Approximately 200 vessels. The Thraxians are requesting immediate military assistance. Kang made her decision quickly. Signal the second fleet, we jump in 4 hours. Any species that attacks our friends attacks us. As the human fleet prepared for another war, Kang reflected on how much had changed. 2 years ago, humanity had been a minor species hoping for acceptance. Now they were the galaxy's dominant military power, protectors of the weak and enforcers of galactic peace. But the price of that power was written in the faces of her crew. These were soldiers who had grown up during the Velthian War. They knew no peace except what strength could provide. They trusted no alien except those who feared human retaliation. On the colony world of New Harmony, Captain Oh Min-seo trained the latest generation of human soldiers. These young people had never known a time when aliens were potential friends rather than potential threats. Remember, she told her trainees, there are only 2 kinds of aliens in this galaxy, those who respect human sovereignty and those who are too dead to threaten it. Your job is to make sure everyone understands which category they want to be in. The soldiers nodded seriously. They had grown up with stories of the Velthian threat and humanity's response. To them, the war was not a tragedy, but a triumph, proof that humans were the galaxy's natural rulers. What about peaceful species? Asked one young recruit. What about aliens who just want to be left alone? We leave them alone, Min-seo replied, but we also make sure they understand that our peace is not the same thing as weakness. The galaxy learned that lesson when the Velthians made their mistake. Back on Earth, Captain Lee Dong-ho visited the memorial wall that had been built to honor the 50,000 victims of New Hope Station. The old captain had aged greatly during the war, his hair gone white and his face marked with lines of stress and sorrow. He stood before the wall of names, remembering the day when humanity had first encountered the aliens. They had gone to the stars with such hope, such naive belief that intelligent species would naturally choose cooperation over conflict. We were so innocent then, he said to the memorial. We thought the universe would welcome us with open arms. We never imagined we would become its worst nightmare. A young girl approached the memorial with her school group. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, but she looked at the wall of names with the serious expression of someone much older. Captain Lee, she said, recognizing him from school lessons about the war. Why did the aliens want to hurt us? Lee knelt down to meet her eyes. How could he explain to a child that some species saw kindness as weakness? How could he tell her that the galaxy was full of predators who would destroy anything they perceived as prey? Because they didn't understand what humans really are, he said finally. They thought we were weak because we wanted peace. They learned too late that we were just choosing to be peaceful. Will other aliens try to hurt us? The girl asked. Lee looked at her young face, already showing the cautious hardness that marked the post-war generation. Some might try, he said. But they'll remember what happened to the last ones who threatened us, and if they don't remember, we'll remind them. As night fell over Earth, the planet's orbital defenses came to life. Thousands of weapons platforms and patrol ships maintained constant watch,